Welcome to the Sacred Reclamation Podcast. Here we will be exploring how we can reclaim the sacredness of birth, life, death, and all the happenings in between. My name is Sydney Sands, and my intention with this podcast is to reclaim the art of storytelling. This is a space where we will practice allowing the simple act of telling our stories and listening to the stories of others to be medicine for our bodies and spirits. I invite you to keep an open mind and an open heart as you listen to these stories. Grab a cup of tea, maybe a little snack, and settle in for story time. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Sacred Reclamation Podcast. Today on the show, we have my sweet friend, Maddie. Maddie and I met last year in the summertime, I think. I was living up in Boone, North Carolina, and went to a coffee shop and saw a flyer that really caught my eye and drew my attention to her. And when I scanned the QR code and read her little about me, I just had to reach out to her. So we connected that way. And then, yeah, she joined the women's circle that we started up in Boone. And then we've just connected a little bit here and there. But I'm really excited to sit down with you today and learn more about you and your story and just hear all the beautiful stories you want to share. So thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I am so happy to be here chatting with you.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. All right, so we'll just start with a little mini meditation. If you want to go ahead and close down your eyes, if you feel comfortable and safe, anyone listening, if you want to join in and close down your eyes. And we're going to dive right in. So go ahead and take a deep belly breath, a deep inhale. Exhaling through your mouth or nose. And we're just going to go 3 deep breaths at your own pace. And we're just going to hold the intention of how quick can I drop into my body right now. So we're going to drop in these 3 breaths. So whenever you're ready, go ahead, inhale through your nose, big belly breath. You take one more sip at the top. And exhale. Let it go. 2 more, just like that. Inhale. As much air as you can get in. Take one more sip at the top. And then exhale. Let it go. One more just like this. Let this be the biggest breath you've taken all day. Inhale. One more sip. Exhale. Let it go. Drop in. We've arrived. Beautiful. Whenever you're ready, go ahead and open up your eyes. Maybe look around the space you're in. Thank you.
Yeah, that was nice. Thank you.
Yeah, so now I'll just start with both of us setting our intentions, and mine is just super clear today and super simple. My intention is just to really be present in this moment with you and your stories. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I listened to your podcast this morning, the one where you get into your story, and I love what you said about just making the story the medicine. And so that's my intention today is just to let the story be the medicine and not let my analytical mind get too much in the way. And so, yeah.
I love that.
Uh,
All right, so I'll hand it over to you to introduce yourself, kind of tell us who you are, where you're from, what your work in the world is right now.
yeah, so my name is Madeline Mrugal, and my friends call me Maddie. I currently live in Pennsylvania, and that's where I'm from. And I spent a few years in North Carolina, which is where I met you. And I weave a bunch of stuff together, including somatic therapy, energetic healing, a really cool form of intuition. And I also like to kind of put some science in there, some physics, some neuroscience. And feminine embodiment is really the central core. I love working with women. And I love helping women and also helping myself to understand our emotions and how our emotions are sort of the thing, at least for me, that connect the physical body with the more energetic spiritual side of things. And yeah, I am a healer and a teacher. And I really am so grateful to get to be doing what I do.
Yeah, I've gotten to just like see into your work a tiny bit through just you leading the meditations at the women's circle and going to your class in studio in Boone that one time. That was really lovely, and I'm sad that we don't live
I
anywhere near
know.
each other now.
I know. Such a special time we had. Such a
Yeah, it
special time.
was. I'm glad that we got to our paths crossed in that way.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing all the beautiful things that you do in the future.
Well, thank you. Likewise, Sydney. Seriously, you have such a gift at facilitating community, and of course, your gifts with nature and plants as well. So, yeah, likewise.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Okay, so before we kind of dive into your bigger story and your bigger reclamation story, take us to where we want to start. What do we need to know about you and your life before
Yeah.
we drop in deeper?
Yeah. I would say a huge theme in my life has been this tension between my intuition and this really strong belief that I was born wrong in some way, that I am wrong. The thoughts that come to me are wrong. The emotions that I feel are wrong. And I would say a great point to start is really when I was 8 years old and I had an intuitive moment. And I use the word intuitive, although the intuition that I practice is also like being psychic. And it's nothing special. I believe that we're all born with these gifts. They just have to be practiced, much like a muscle needs to be strengthened. So, but anyways, I was 8 years old and I am walking to the bus stop. And I had this moment where I was looking around at the houses in my neighborhood and the kids waiting there and the parents and, people rushing off to work. And I had this moment where I just felt my consciousness expanding past the physical, past all these layers, all these different realms, up into source. I prefer that term source. And and this kind of knowing came to me like, the world that we're currently living in is all just a series of agreements, and we are actually so much more capable and powerful to create the lives that we want than what we're told. And, me being, having that tension between my intuition, right? This clarity that's coming through, and then just believing that I'm wrong, I immediately shut that down and I continued walking. Like I just remember walking, getting on the bus, being like, "Whoa, that was so cool," but I'm going to shut it down. And I have a few more points that I can mention, but I didn't know if you wanted to kind of take it from anywhere. Uh,
Yeah, please
okay.
go into it. I'm already captivated.
So another moment was when I was 15 and I'm in high school, and high school is always so interesting for all of us. And I read this book. Most of us women probably know it, either the book or the movie. It's called A Walk to Remember. And spoiler, I'm going to spoil it. So, just letting people know. So I read the book. I have a public speaking class, and I had to kind of like just basically talk about a book for this class. I read the book, and I get to the part where she announces that she's, dying from cancer. And I had this moment where I was transported into a moment in my future where I would have a partner, someone who I really loved, that would die. And that it was a theme in my life that my romantic relationship, one of them would die. And again, I kind of like zoomed back into my life, like zoomed out of that and back into my life and was really scared, but less scared than when I was 8 years old. And so I was just like, wow, that's a truth in my life that will happen. And then I kind of just forgot about it. I went to school the next day and I had cried so much that night because I was like feeling the grief of my future self. And I get back to school and people are like, oh my God, your face is so puffy. And I was like, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. So, anyways, I get into my 20s and I meet this guy. And I had really truly forgotten, at least consciously, about that moment in high school. And I think what more, now that I'm speaking about it, I didn't really want to explore it too much. And I meet this guy. I'm in my 20s, and I actually I hear his name, and even before meeting him, I just had this like I gotta meet this guy. I walk out, we're in a bar, he's smoking a cigarette outside, and I'll never forget that walk out to him. I had this clarity of like, this is the person who you will, fall in love with. This is your first love. This is your first boyfriend. And I meet him, I look into his eyes, and from then for the next 3 years, we have this crazy romp around Europe. He's Spanish. He was Spanish. He was born in this little town in the province of Alicante in Spain. And we have this, life in Barcelona and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, um, he ended up dying 3 years after I met him, almost to the day, in a car accident. And so, your podcast, Sydney, is all about birth and death. And so I think that like most of our stories really weave those two themes in quite seamlessly. And so, yeah, I had to go through the gauntlet of grief and use grief as my portal to understand life. Death really was my portal to understand life. And I sort of started to develop my intuitive powers more actively because my gift with intuition is I can hear answers, almost like my consciousness is tuning a radio dial, like I'm tuning into I was tuning into, his name was Tony. I was tuning into Tony's um spirit, right? I was tuning into Tony's spirit, and I could hear him communicate with me, and I would dream of him often, and I would receive lessons that way as well, and insight that way as well. And that's when I really discovered my gift of being able to hear uh, source, and not only source but higher selves and spirit and guides and stuff like that. And that also, to kind of round this out here, that drove me into what I do now as a healer. It pushed me to get my yoga teacher certification. It pushed me into feminine embodiment, which then, something that I would love to deep dive with you is my pregnancy and my birth. But that's really what that moment of him dying and that subsequent 3 years of like epic healing and grief and work on myself was really what enabled me to, I think, even knock on the door of feminine embodiment, which then brought my free birth to be so gorgeous. Um, so yeah.
Mm. Thanks for sharing that.
Hmm.
Yeah, I always find it so interesting just going back to where you started being 8 years old, like at the bus stop and having
Yeah.
this like intuitive hit. I always think that's so cool when people share stories of an experience like that when they're a child. I guess my question is, and I know you said with the when that you had that hit again in high school that you kind of forgot, and then was there a
Hmm.
moment that you remembered, or did you, and when you were 8, did you remember that and carry that with you, or was there a moment that these things just like shot back to your memory and you were like, oh wow, I was.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a great question. The moment when I was 8 years old has repeatedly come to me in times where I've just been really confused, and I've always been shown that one, instance in my life to help me open to, the source truth or the higher perspective of things. And actually, it's funny. I guess it's not funny, but maybe it is. Right the moment when I was told that Tony died, we were living in Vancouver at the time in Canada, and I had flown home to attend my grandfather's funeral, and he embarked on the road trip of his dreams down Vancouver into Seattle, and then his goal was San Diego. And anyways, I wasn't there at the time of his car accident, right? So he has a twin brother who's great and still with us and is amazing, Jordy. And he called me, and actually I think he texted me, which was really hard to receive over text. And I just saw it. I saw the message and immediately was like transported back to that moment of like, oh fuck, I knew that like this basically what that was I was told, and then there was this moment that could have lasted forever. It felt like it was so long. And I was just receiving like this was planned. This was always going to happen between the two of you, and this is going to work out for you. Like this is a gift. And then that moment closed, and then I mean, you're someone who's experienced like the passing of your mother, so like deep grief. And so then that falling to the knees moment that we sometimes see in movies, and the screaming up into the sky moment, that happened. But yeah, I definitely recalled my 15-year-old self, and just knowing that that was a thing that was going to happen in my life. So yeah.
Mm. That's really beautiful to just have that touch point of because I know, like you said, I know how it is, and when you're so swept up in the emotion of it all at the beginning, it's almost impossible to see that. Or
Right.
like I'm so amazed that you even were open enough to have that window to like let that memory come back to you, and it's just like almost a little whisper from God
Yeah.
or source of like, I've got you, it's okay.
Yeah.
And then just having to really surrender and trust that it is gonna be a gift. It is a gift, and
Yeah.
it might not
Yeah.
feel like a gift. I'm really a big believer that, at least for me in my lifetime, I can say that some of the worst things that have ever happened in my life have also turned out to be some of the best things that have ever happened.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I have developed the ability, at least now, to especially my work in embodiment and somatics, to honor the emotion of pain, like whatever is coming up. And I'm someone who feels rage a lot. Like rage is like my freaking thing. And while also simultaneously inviting in the higher perspective, like, they can happen simultaneously. And that is something that I've been working on too. And that him passing really allowed me to kind of start down that road, that path.
Yeah, I would love if you want to talk about rage and anger at all, because I feel like a lot of times they get labeled as like bad emotions or even secondary emotions, anger.
Yeah.
And I just don't see that to be true, or almost like
Yeah.
a lower frequency emotion.
Right.
Um, and I just really hate that, but I don't necessarily have the words. I haven't completely wrapped my mind around it. So I don't know if you have anything to say about that.
Yeah, and I think that there's like a lot of nuance maybe that I'm not even able to speak to today, because it's so uh to me it's such a vast, topic. I do resonate with frequencies in emotions, but there's something like I don't want to take away from that, like, oh, I'm never supposed to feel rage. You know, I think that if you picture, because you, yeah, in your podcast this morning, you make analogies all the time, and I do too. The way that diamonds get made is all this pressure, and the way that we make ceramics is through like high heat. And I think that when anger, and specifically rage, when it comes up, like for me, this like fiery hatred, um and often I at least look at it as like my own fiery self-hatred. It comes up, and it's that heat that allows that like diamond to be revealed. And so no, I choose not to like operate from anger. Like I choose not to make that my baseline. But and you mentioned a lot about ceremony as well in your wonderful podcast. And I choose to call it a rage ceremony because it truly is this initiation into like I am ready to receive that lesson. I am ready to receive this piece of insight that I would never have been able to get if I didn't allow myself to honor my rage. And look, it's not always easy. Sometimes I outlet that rage onto my partner, onto my like beautiful, innocent, sweet 1 year old. And that's like, that's hard to face when you witness yourself doing something like that. But I think just having the intention set to like honor all of these so-called negative emotions, it changes the game. And I've started to develop this rage ceremony practice. And if I can really get into it, like because even just like getting on the mat is hard. Like, in yoga, they say, just that's the hardest part is just getting on the mat. Like, even if I'm able to do that and like spend 30 minutes just really being there and feeling the tough stuff, there is always going to be that shift. It's like Yolanda says in birth, the baby will come out. And I really believe that the lesson, the insight, the clarity, the diamond will always come out of your ability to honor and just feel into your anger and your rage.
Mm. That feels so important. I love you weaving in that birth metaphor because we're all like creating and giving birth to things all the time.
Yeah.
And I guess the thought that comes to my head when you said it will always come out is I just immediately thought of people who don't honor or choose to feel their emotions, and that gets stuck and causes blockages and
Yeah.
disease in the body.
Yes.
But you are right, it does. The baby always comes out. The emotion is always going
Yeah.
to come out, whether it expresses through an illness, whether it expresses through
Yeah.
death, like it's
Right.
always going to come out.
Yeah. 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 I think that's just fascinating. And there's so much there.
Yeah, I've had this little, I guess it's a lesson that's just been like kind of bubbling under the surface for me lately, the past maybe year or so. And it's just this realization that when we set an intention, whether we feel like we're actively working towards that or whether we consciously remember that we set that intention, like there's something going on in the background, something going on in the energy field where that is in the works and that is working on us and working through us. And yeah, it's been interesting to see that because things that I'm always like I'm a very curious person, so I'm always like learning new things, trying new things, setting intentions, trying to reach goals, checking out new stuff. And so I think that I used to identify myself as a quitter. Like that was something that I was told growing up too, because
Yeah.
I was born into a really sports oriented family and I am just not a sports person, so I tried every sport and I quit every sport. So it was like,
Hmm.
then I got this idea in my head that like, oh, I'm a quitter. So I think I
Yeah.
carry that with me a little bit now, but it's really interesting to see that even if we're not like full steam ahead, fully focused on something, when we are really clear and intentional in a moment, like that can carry you a long way.
Yeah. 1000%. When you were speaking, I just I would love to start adopting this in my own life, but really using that intention as almost this container of safety, like even just having that intention and opening your heart to it is the thing that's going to facilitate, that to come true, so to speak. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I just really quick because it keeps coming back into my mind while we're talking, but I love that you started your story, and I'm gonna butcher what you said, but you just started it. You started it by saying that you always had this um this feeling that you were wrong or you
Hmm.
weren't doing something right or you were doing life the wrong way. And I think that
Hmm.
is such a that might be like a universal feeling of just
Mm.
being alive. I don't know if you
Yeah.
want to speak on that anymore. That is definitely my big thing is like not good enough. And I actually
Yeah.
just recorded a podcast with the friend Zan last week and we talked about this and I just think that we all have that underlying feeling of like we don't know what we're doing it wrong, we're
Yeah.
not good enough, but like it's never maybe it is specific for some people, but a lot of times for me it's not really specific.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, it's funny because the I'm wrong thing, that's the language that I really use when a wound gets triggered. I mean, a wound just got triggered the other day. The I'm wrong just got really activated yesterday, and I had to kind of nurture that. But I also link it to the I'm inherently stupid or like the I'm inherently bad. And, like I was kind of talking about before, I would get these hits and they would range in intensity. And so, the 8 years old, the 15 years old thing, like those were so intense that I could kind of not ignore them or I could kind of not doubt them. But I could forget about them. I could push them away. And so that was really what was going on. It was like I would receive an intuitive hit or an intuitive answer, and I would just be like, no, that's stupid. And then I would, you know, basically, I've always identified as a people pleaser, as someone who would just bend over backwards for people and let them step on me and let them manipulate me. And then I in turn became manipulative and controlling and that whole thing. And yeah, I would say that my life has been a series of moments of um, hearing something and feeling something true, and then immediately ignoring it out of this fear of abandonment, rejection, humiliation, betrayal, all of these things that are very natural for a human being to be afraid of because we survive in packs, we survive in community. Uh, and just being aware now, like I said, yesterday I had a wound get triggered of, oh my God, I did something wrong. I did something wrong. And I literally had to sit with it for 8 effing hours. and and like just rewire, right? That popular term in the healing world right now, like reprogram, rewire. And all that is, in my view, is just like opening my heart to it. And again, I can make an analogy to birth. I really can make an analogy to birth all the time because it's like when I was in my free birth, it was like that pain would come, that intensity would come, and I would just have to surrender. I would just have to open, 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 open. And so when an emotion comes that's hard and a wound just gets scratched and there's blood, uh, figuratively, there's just blood and you just feel it and it's kind of pulsing and it hurts. It's just like how can you let that wound express and how can you open into it and open into it? And then, I woke up today and I just felt so good. I was like, oh my God. And I'm really starting to understand my emotional cycles as a woman. I mean, I've a little over a year postpartum and I haven't started menstruating again. I haven't started my cycle again. But I have been noticing these little emotional cycles I get in daily where, I wake up and the lesson really comes to fruition around 11 a.m. and I feel like, wow, so in love with myself. And then inevitably a life situation will happen. I like to call them reflections. I'll get a reflection and I'll be like, ouch, man, that hurt. And I'll have to inquire deeply. And sometimes it takes 8 hours and sometimes it takes 30 minutes, right? Depending on the level, but always like after that beautiful night of rest, uh that I always I just it just I discover something even more beautiful about myself.
Mm. That's special. And also like available to everyone, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yes, just like love the pain, and not in that weird way, but like love it as in like pain is neither good or bad. Actually actually I subscribe to this in my community, in my like where I learn and grow spiritually, that what they call universal laws. And it's the universal law that basically says that everything is both positive and negative. even an attribute. So even my people pleasing quality would have a positive and a negative. The positive would be, well, like people really like being around me, and that's cool, you know. And so this thing of like pain, of like you're in pain or you're feeling anger or you're feeling confused, like just immediately attaching that to negativity is I would say not necessarily in someone's, you know, highest good. It's just seeing the pain as something that is a part of life, and the skill to be practiced is the focus on, you know, opening and surrender and softening into. And I don't want to get misconstrued with soften, you know, that term with, you know, feminine embodiment and soften and femininity and all of that, because sometimes I'll be in my own rage ceremony and I will literally be like beating my fists into the ground. Like, you know, a lot of times I'll have a physical part of my body that I've hated for ever since I can remember, and I'll have to be releasing something there. And I'll feel all this rage, but what I'm actually doing is opening to it in that expression. I'm opening to it, and I am softening to it. Because, you know, it is, everything is everything. So, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like our languaging can be so limited. I really like what you said about everything being both positive and negative, because that brought me back to the whole anger and rage topic of like it's not good or bad, or it's not better or worse, or higher or lower doesn't mean it's good or bad, you know? It's just,
Right. Yeah, exactly.
and I can't find the words for it. And I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
know what the word is, but I just love it's simple to just say everything is both positive and negative,
Yeah.
instead
Yeah.
of always just trying to section things off and
Right.
you go here and you go here and that's it. Like that's just
Totally.
so
Totally. And like, you know, this fear of being stupid, constantly me trying to be perfect so that I wouldn't be wrong. Uh, it's funny because like stupid is also so smart because everything is everything. So my like confidence to just say what might be stupid is also the thing that's going to allow me to learn and become smarter. And actually people who really, you know, get too attached to their intelligence and their smarts, it's like they can develop this ego and this arrogance that just becomes their block from learning. So what I'm saying is just like go out there and be you. There's nothing nothing limiting can come from that. I think only growth can come from
yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love that so much.
that. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
would you say that that is your big message, your big song that you're singing in life? Is that what you're reclaiming really is?
Yes. Oh my God. I'm reclaiming my intuition, but what I'm really reclaiming is myself and my authentic expression. And that feels so, so real for me, you know, at 31, with a baby and a partner and, you know, a business and the life that I'm creating. It's just like, you know, who am I? I mean, I know who I am in my room, right? I even know who I am when I'm with my partner or with my family. But like when I'm putting myself out there, can I just be me? And can I just be rejected? And you know, sometimes I can't. Sometimes I catch myself just like not acting in the ways that I know would like really benefit me and really challenge me. But like there's this concept in feminine embodiment that they call edging, and it's really just like testing yourself in small ways. And also, you know, I mentioned I got quite triggered yesterday, and I really wanted to challenge myself to have this difficult conversation. Um, I didn't have it. I kind of just like slinked around, like, you know, a shell of myself, but I was just aware of it. Like I wasn't beating myself up for it. I wasn't getting guilty or shamed about it. I was like, oh, okay, so this is what happens when, you know, this gets triggered. And okay, now I see what you need. And maybe we don't need to throw you into the deep end right now. Like maybe that's not the goal. Maybe the goal is to just take 8 hours of really like soft, tender, you know, touch and movement, and you know, I went to a yoga class and it was really nice and I took care of myself in that way. And then, you know, without me even having to try, again, this topic of like surrender and opening without me even having to try, that difficult situation just got solved. And it might have not gotten solved in the way that my higher self, I really aim to be, but it did inevitably get solved. And self-love was the way to get me there.
Yeah. Yeah. That really reminds me of, because that is so true for me. It is sometimes
Yeah.
that it's not the thing that you think that you have to do in order to like get something done. And
Right.
I run into this a lot in my relationship with Shane.
Yeah.
That's he's such a great teacher for me, and our relationship is such a great teacher in practice
Yes. Yes.
and challenge. And we've had, we have a thing going on right now, and it's just kind of been festering. And then me, I'm like, I want to fix it, or like, I want to
Yeah.
talk it out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the talker, and Shane is more of, and we're both like, we're so similar, but we're also so freaking different.
Yeah.
And so in this instance, like I want to talk it out until we reach a resolution, and
Yeah.
that's never worked for us. Like
Uh-huh.
I talk and talk and talk until he goes silent.
I relate. I relate
And
1000%.
and then I get offended by his silence and his lack of
Yeah.
reaction.
Yeah.
And then he is like, okay, I'm gonna walk away because this is getting too heated.
Totally.
And then
Yep.
I'm like, I've gotten better over the years. We've been together
Yeah.
7 years now, so I'm learning. But sometimes that will just push me over the edge of then I'm really gonna explode. Like, you're gonna walk away now, like
Yeah. Yeah.
freak out. And
Right.
so when it is so true that that is what we need is space.
Mm.
But my thing now, since I've become more aware of like my tendency to explode when he needs space. My thing now is like, okay, let's take the space, but you need to come back. Like you're responsible for
Yeah.
coming back and
Yeah.
wrapping this up in whatever way that we can.
Right.
I totally forgot where I was going with this, but
No, yeah. I love that. Whatever. I love this. I mean, relationships, they really are our most important teachers in life, like who we become romantically involved with and partnered with. And I mean, it's literally like you just explained almost every single argument I have with Bodhi, with my partner. And I think guys, they do have this tendency to, like, when we just want something so bad, we want a resolution, we want to talk it out, that actually like repels them into, the universe where they just want to go live on a different planet for a week. And I mean that's like Bodhi's MO. I mean, but I've been experimenting with this thing. Like an argument will start to kind of develop, and I'll start to feel like hot and irritated, and something's not making sense, and I feel maybe accused of something. And I can notice that he's about to be done, and I'm just like, okay, okay, because I know there's this energetic law of like the more we want something from this place of not having it, the more we push it away. So I've just like developed this sort of energetic mastery where I'm just like, okay, you can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want because I know that I have the power and the skill to take care of myself. And as soon as I get into that energy, he's just like, well, okay, maybe not that easy, but he's like, okay, all right, like we can solve this in an amicable way up to a point right now, right? Um, and that, I mean, frick, that energetic law comes in all the time with my son as well. So, yeah.
yeah, that's something that I forget. I wish I could remember that more often.
It takes a lot of failing to get there. That's why we need failure. It literally brings us, yeah, into mastery. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that's where I was going with that story was so Shane in our conversation was kind of like, I don't think we actually need to talk about this. He's like, I know how you feel, you know how I feel. We've been together for a very long time. This is not the first time we've had this conversation. And I'm over here like, obviously we need to talk about it. And then
yeah,
we just kind of we were able to leave it. And then just over time, it's almost that same thing of like something's working in the background, things are bubbling
Yes.
under the surface.
Yes. Yes.
I'm angrily journaling yesterday, just like being such a victim in my journal. But then
Yep.
this morning, there was such a big shift
Yeah.
and going the way that I was wanting. And it was true. It makes me so annoyed that he was right because it was like we didn't need to talk about it.
Yes. Oh my
And
God, I feel you.
but it's like yeah, I don't have words for it and I don't think I'm supposed to have words for it, but it's just
Yeah.
like there's other things going on besides beyond us and what we can
Yeah.
do or say or
Yeah.
force.
Oh my God. I mean, if I could just master this simple, like whenever I get triggered in the form of irritation, anger, could I just admit that I don't know everything? Do you know how much like time that would save me? Oh, save me so much time, and it would save so much time of Bodhi as well. Like, poor man is, just spilling facts, and I'm just like, well, actually, like, no, actually, it's like this, and like, I don't appreciate that. But yeah, so it's just like, can I just admit that I don't know everything? And I think, yeah, I think that that's a common theme for a lot of women, for a lot of relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fun to laugh about it with each other and then the rare moments when you do catch yourself in that moment and you can like laugh with your partner at yourself.
Yes,
At each like you're both
yes.
laughing together.
Like you get to a point in the argument where you're like, what the actual fuck are we doing? Yeah, that happens as well. I mean, I welcome it. I love that. It kind of cuts the tension. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Well, where do you want to go? I know you want to talk about your pregnancy and your free birth, and I would love
Yeah.
to talk about that. But is there anything that you want to say before we go there?
No, I just can't wait to jump into it. Um, yeah. If there's like a central like kind of theme you want to keep anchored to in that when I get into it, like I want to kind of get into my pregnancy a little bit and what drove me to free birth and then the actual free birth experience itself, and then just being a mother and an entrepreneur and some of the lessons that I've learned then. So
Yeah, that's great. Wherever you want to start,
okay.
like if you want to start, if you need to start before pregnancy or if you just want to drop into a specific moment in pregnancy, go for it.
Yeah, I think let's drop into a specific moment where I'm at a like a nurse midwife, what do they call them, office. So there's an OBGYN attached to it, but I was like, even when I found out that I was pregnant, and it was a surprise and I had to deal with a lot of turmoil there. But I feel like we really got into the emotional keys today. So, uh, but I was adamant on like, you know what? I know I don't want to do things the traditional way, but I had never heard the term free birth. I really had not delved into this, this concept of victimhood and reclamation and sovereignty. I really just was not aware of that so much. I mean, I had been studying feminine embodiment, for a little bit at that point, but whatever. So I find myself in this nurse midwife's office, and I'm like, this is not resonating with me. And I end up going back about 4 or 5 times. And every time I just, I would wait to be called, and they would take my weight, and I was just like, no one cares about me. No one actually cares about me here. They don't care about my time. They don't really care to get to know me or what's going on emotionally. Like there's just, it's just surface level. It's just vapid. And the turning point for me was, I'm get actually there was like a 1-2 kind of turning point, like a double hit that I was like, I'm out of here. And it was the ultrasound was one, and they were actually doing the anatomy scan. And because I am intuitive, and because I can really speak to spirits or energies, consciousness in other realms, I could hear my son as the nurse is kind of like, has the jelly and is doing the thing with the anatomy scan. He was so angry. And he was so violated. He felt so violated, and he felt like, get out of my space. And all of a sudden, like, I was just kind of happy that day, getting my anatomy scan, not really feeling aligned, but like, whatever, this is what everyone does, so I'll just do it. And and I just all of a sudden got this anger, and I was like, oh, I wanted to like push this woman away from me. And I didn't, manners, whatever. I let the thing continue, people pleasing, and I left. And then the next week I went in, and they were like, okay, we're gonna do that glucose thing, that diabetic pregnancy thing. And I was like,
Oh,
she said the next time I come in that that was gonna happen. And because I'm polite, right, or whatever, I didn't say this, but the thought that came in my head was like, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. There's no way I'm doing that. I never came back. And I kind of was in this space of like, am I gonna do the midwife, not the nurse midwife, because that's not a midwife to me. Um, but am I going to do this kind of like unregulated or whatever they call it? This midwife that's kind of like not in the medical system, quote unquote. And there was one around the Boone area that I couldn't seem to like get in touch with for some reason. And then one day, this woman who I followed on Instagram, who was definitely like, this fire starter for sure, this like very powerful woman who had no problem triggering people. She starts talking about free birth, and I literally read the word, and I just feel this like ooey gooey, like. And I remember you talking about on your podcast how you heard the word, or you started listening to their podcast, Free Birth Society, and you were like, oh my God, this is it. And I just went in. I went in so hard. And, there was some trepidation from my partner. But then as soon as I showed him the Free Birth Society course, which was the complete guide to free birth, which I took that so fast. I just mowed through it. And I was like 7 months pregnant at this time, just like mowing through it, reading Portal, subscribing to Yo's, monthly community, whatever, like going, doing the, the, the self-healing calls that she, her kind of self-healing philosophy, all of that, just like went 0 to 100 into it, into it, into it. And, my partner was like, holy crap, I can see how much that you trust yourself in this. And he just immediately, pretty immediately got on board. But there was this moment that I want to touch on because I had a call with the midwife, the unregulated midwife, whatever we call them, in Boone, and it was a really lovely conversation. And I was like, wow, I could really see myself. And this was before I had decided to go like full steam ahead on free birth. I was kind of in the middle, because free birth, I hadn't even heard of it. It's highly triggering to a lot of people. It's confusing to people. And, me not wanting to make waves and upset people, as that was kind of my nature, I was like, I don't know about that. And I get off this call, and it was lovely. And, I do a little bit of, a little bit more research on free birth, a little bit. And then I kind of come to this fork in the road where, and of course, being with a midwife, it costs 5 grand. And we didn't really have that available at the time. And um, I consulted an oracle deck, as us spiritual girlies tend to do sometimes when there's a question we have. And basically I got the answer of like, hey, if you want to, you can go with the midwife. It's going to be fine. Hey, if you want to, you can go the free birth route, and it's going to be fine. And I just was like, oh my God, this oracle isn't going to give me the answer. I'm actually going to have to tap in. And I again had this like falling to my knees, crying moment, because all of a sudden I kind of tuned into my son who's in my belly. I'm pregnant. I tuned into Eros. And he's like, hey, mom, like it's literally coming in language like this. It's like, hey, mom, you were meant to have a free birth. There's not going to be any medical complications. This is a story that you're gonna have to share. Like you have to do a free birth. And I was crying, like it was really emotional because free birth, in order to go about that, you really have to be you have to be open to life, and your heart has to be open to a specific degree in order for you to even like go down that path. And so yeah, I chose it on that in that moment, and that's when I deep dived. And then the day came, and I I don't know. Do we want to start that? We can get into like my birth story a little bit. Um, the night before I gave birth, I my partner Bodhi, his life purpose, his mission is to bring the philosophy of Tantra to the men's healing space. So he just finished a Tantra course at that time, and it was specifically like sexuality focused. And he was like, hey, do you mind if we do this like hour-long sort of meditation, breathwork, ritual thing? This sort of tantric sexual practice. And I was like, sure. And I just remember it was almost like somatic, somatic in nature because I just felt like as we were making love, I actually felt all of this like emotion, just this pain, this emotional pain, just like leave my body. But of course, I felt terrible because in order for it to leave, you kind of have to feel it. And, but it was this sort of sexual somatic experience. And afterwards, really for the first time in my whole pregnancy, I felt from root chakra to crown, it was 100% clear. I felt like I was a vessel, like I was an instrument, like I was just like, just hollow and empty, which is what my partner's, spiritual group calls the state of just being so aligned, basically. And the next morning, I wake up and I am dripping a little bit. My amniotic fluid is dripping a little bit, and I'm like, am I peeing? Am I, oh, okay, something's happening. And then I like, you shit your brains out if you've ever given birth, um, uh, before you give birth. And then I was like, okay, something's coming. And basically that first 30 minutes, I was kind of drifting in and out of sleep, kind of like, let me go back to sleep. But my body was like, actually, I think we're getting ready to go give birth. And then so some women I hear have longer quote unquote labors. And my sister-in-law had a much longer labor, like 72 hours. And she is also in this like home birthing, sovereign space. And so I was expecting that. I was just expecting that. And no, it went from 0 to probably about a 7. Pain. I don't want to say pain. I'll just say intensity level. And then from there, just went 10 out of 10. I mean, I gave birth in 2.5 hours, and it was my first birth. And I really think that tantric practice the night before cleared me of any like emotions, limiting beliefs, energy that didn't need to be there. And then, I wake up and in 2.5 hours, my son is born. And that entire process was I felt the urge to resist. I felt the urge to hold on, right? To attach myself to the pain, to say things like, I can't do this, I can't do this. So I would feel that urge. And then because I read Portal and I attribute my birth so much to both Emily and Yo, mainly Yolanda, because that's who I more resonate with. But I just used the tools that she gave in Portal. I didn't even finish Portal at that time. I had read about half of it. And I just like would notice that response, that tendency to want to hold and grip, and I would release it, and I would release it, and I would release it. And that releasing process was to this day, I mean, and I've experienced my partner of 3 years dying suddenly. Like that was without a doubt the most like the biggest test of my life, the biggest test of my life. And I was able to open to a point where uh, I was just, the veils were completely lowered. And this is beautiful about birth. And when a woman is not interrupted, first by the entire medical complex, but then second by other people there, when she's just allowed to just be in her raw, like animal self, like screaming if she wants, crying, holding things, moving around. Like I really visualize myself as a wolf, during this period. And I was like, whenever I needed help, I would summon wisdom and energy from wise women, from long ago, from current. I would just like summon their help, and I would tune in that gift of audio, like audio intuition would just come, and I would hear their love. Like I would hear them say, "You can do this." I would hear them give me guidance. And the next opening would take even more courage. It would take even more courage, and it would take even more stamina to open. And then I remember my son came through, and he was like, "I'm coming. Like, I'm on my way. I'm coming shortly." And I was like, "Wait, what?" Like, I thought this process was going to be so long. Like, and at the time, because I just entered into it at a 7, at an 8, I was like, "Wait, I'm not going to be able to do this for 3 days." Something wasn't computing until he kind of came online and was like, "I'm coming out." And at that moment, I'm like crawling onto my floor bed. I'm like crawling on like a wild animal. And at this point, and this is why I love Yolanda's book so much, it's called Portal, because I was like basically laying down. I was laying down everything I ever knew about myself, laying down everything I ever knew about life, just laying it down and saying, I give it all to you. Like I know nothing. You surrendering the ego to an extent that I had never done before. And I was just like, I am willing to die. Like I'm willing to die. I'm willing to see. Like show me. And it's like I literally at this point I actually saw a door being opened, and I was communicating directly with, at the time I thought I thought it was like source, but maybe now it was my higher self. I'm not sure, but I'll use source. And it was as if, I think it was source. Yeah, it was source. And it was this invitation from source that I had made it through. I walked through that portal. I walked through that door, and I get on my hands and knees, and my son shoots out. Like literally shoots out. And Bodhi, and I'm calling Bodhi because I'm like, I ordered Bodhi to like not interfere. He's literally sitting in our living room on the couch reading, and I'm going through this like epic fucking experience, like the biggest experience of my life. And I yell, and he comes in and he catches arrows, and oh my God, I mean the the emotions you feel, like all women who all women who go through that experience, who choose to feel it, right? They choose to fully surrender themselves. They choose they choose to open to the mystery, right? They get rewarded. They get rewarded with the life lessons. They get rewarded with the experience, with the knowledge, with the emotions, with the bond. And so to anyone that's like, you know, on the fence of like, well, what should I do? Should I do this? Should I do that? It's like, you will get what you put in, 1,000%. So that first year of motherhood, because I gave birth the way that I did, I was able to then make choices and decisions that would strengthen our bond. I still breastfeed. I I cloth diapered, and I don't have to get righteous about any of this. This is just what aligned with me. Co-sleeping. I spent a long time learning how to master my rage, and wasn't always successful, but got to a point where now I've sort of become this energetic master to where I see him behaving in a way that's upsetting to me, like triggering to me. And I'm just like, you know what? How many women don't get to have a baby? How many women, you know, are struggling to get pregnant? How many women like would literally chop off a limb in order to have a child right now? And I just get into that space, and I release all this pressure of who I have to be, the career pressure, the pressure, the family pressure, and I just sit in that moment with him. And the thing that he's doing that triggers me, he immediately stops. And it all is energy, and it is all your ability to just say like, hey, I don't know everything. I can sit here and I can just breathe. I have all the time in the world. And I think that free birth was the thing to teach me that and clarify that.
Oh, so epic. So epic.
Yeah. Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. I will have more children in the future, and immediately after I gave birth, I was like, holy shit, I'm gonna have to do this again if I want another baby. I don't know if I could do that, but it's I would never, I just I just don't regret that. I just obviously it's one of the greatest gifts you can get in terms of consciousness expansion and growth and yeah, pretty epic.
It's absolutely insane, and I have not given birth yet. I look forward and in both you know, I do have fear because I've listened to so many stories and yeah, have witnessed a few births and wow, especially a free birth when you're at home and when you choose I find like nothing lights me up the way a free birth story does. And then to hear your story of being one where you were like, kind of on this straight and narrow path.
Yeah,
And I would assume that a lot of women go down that path and are getting these intuitive hits
yeah,
when they're getting their anatomy scan or getting a different ultrasound or they're told to drink this nasty ass drink and let's see
yeah.
what happens to your blood sugar
So
so
dumb.
that we can label you diabetic.
Yeah, so stupid.
Just all these stupid things that they do to you in the system. I would assume that so many women get that intuitive hit of like, this is fucking weird. This is
Yeah,
not right. This does
yeah,
not feel good. Like, I don't want to do this. And they just
right.
keep going.
Hmm.
And I truly do believe that that is one of the core roots of why the world is the way it
Yes,
is because when you
yes,
step into not only motherhood, but also that's a child stepping into their life that way of like their home and their protector. This is harsh, but like not doing their
yeah,
job of being protector and just letting it happen and letting it happen. And then that goes into their birth and then that affects their motherhood journey. Like, I just wonder how many different
yeah.
choices you've made as a mother now that you just decided
Hmm.
in that moment or those moments to just trust yourself and your son and that
Yeah,
communication you're receiving
uh,
with him. And that has just led you down.
hmm.
Like, there's no doubt in my mind that that has drastically changed the trajectory of both of your lives and so many people's
Yeah.
lives because you're just going to go out and like touch so many people with this story and this experience. It's incredible.
I love I love everything you just said. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And I think that's really why generational trauma it carries on, it carries on, it carries on through birth, right? Through the way that women are able to or not able to listen to themselves. I think that's a huge lesson for humanity right now. And it's really women, and I love men. I freaking love them. And we are one. We are one kind of unit at the end of the day, but it's a woman's ability to listen to her intuition and to develop that skill or get into her body, develop the resilience to feel the uncomfortable shit that will like allow her to listen and then that will then like really just greatly decrease trauma children experience. Um, and I've seen, I haven't been perfect with arrows. I haven't been perfect, but I've been so devoted to the growth, so devoted to the lesson in all of its forms that when I catch myself calling him, when he's crying and he's limiting me from being able to sleep, for example, or work, and I catch myself being like, "Oh, you stupid baby, like why won't you just do this?" It's like instead of beat myself up for that, I'm like, "Oh, okay, so that's what I'm doing. Okay, like can I just like sit here and just be like, that's what I'm doing. Okay, it's okay. Oh, okay, let me feel the rage or let me just get into that space of gratitude, right? Because like sometimes we're gonna want to get into the gratitude immediately, and sometimes we're gonna just want to feel the shit. And so I just choose whichever door I want to go in. And his energy just seriously immediately changes. So a woman's capacity to love herself truly is also her capacity to be intuitive, which is also going to change the world, basically, is what I'm saying. So,
It is it is so true. Like, I really think when we are looking at bigger problems in our lives or in the world or anything, like just simplifying it and taking these small little acts of self-love or making a small choice. I don't really think it's really about the huge, big things. And I think that sometimes
No.
we get caught up in that as humans
Yeah.
and then we beat ourselves up for it because we're
Uh-huh.
not like making these huge strides. And it's
Right.
like, can we bring it back? Can we simplify?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I heard this one thing from my teacher. His name is Alessandro, and he does a lot of like energetic, intuitive neuroscience work. And he said, just getting into the space of like, love for everything, right? Everything is perfect. Like everything is how it's supposed to be. Even that person that pisses you off or that political leader, like whatever, it's just like when you open your heart to such a space of seeing the perfection, that heals. He said this 1 million souls energetically, at least. So I love what you said about like, I can get caught up in it like, oh, I want all this external validation. I want the recognition. I want the big career. I want all the money. I want all the clients. And it's like, no. I mean, great. Like those wants are great. And there's also this kind of quote in my school that's like your want for something is the proof that you have the ability to create it. So great, there's that.
Mm.
But like it is the small things of just opening your freaking heart. I mean, how many beings is that touching? 1 million at least. So really that we're talking about it's coming down to love. Everything comes down to love. It's coming down to how gentle and loving and accepting you can be with yourself first, and then let that radiate out.
Yeah. Yeah. And it does. It kind of goes back to that whole idea of like even if you aren't consciously hyper aware of that happening, when you just, make a small act of self-love, make a little choice and not in a way that freaking mainstream social media will see. So, where it's not like, oh, I'm just gonna drink wine and watch Netflix all night. Like that's
Right.
not what I mean by a small act of love. And it means something different to everyone, but it could
Yeah, it
just
does.
be in the moment that you're describing of when your baby is crying and you're trying to do something else.
Yeah.
And then you just have this choice of like, okay, am I gonna go into the anger or am I going to go into gratitude? And it's
Right.
like that's not even really the choice. It's just you dropping into that moment and
Hmm.
seeing those two choices available. Like knowing
Right.
that we have a choice and we have power over our lives. I think that that makes all the difference in the world. It's not necessarily about if we choose the right thing. Like there you can
Yeah.
never choose wrong, you know?
Yeah. I agree with that completely. I agree with that. And yeah, it's that option is always there. I don't know if this is a direct quote from Yolanda or if I'm just paraphrasing something, but it's like calling motherhood hard is a choice. Like calling motherhood the greatest gift in the world is a choice. Yeah, sometimes I just want to effing complain. That's okay. Sometimes I want to be a brat, and that's okay. And I let it happen and I observe my brattiness. And other times I'm like, F no. Like I know at least 3 women right now who are trying to get pregnant and they can't for various reasons. And it's just like, no, this is the greatest fucking gift. And you know what? It goes hand in hand with your goals and dreams too, because if you're trying to create your life from this place of like, tightness, I'm just trying to do this and I'm just trying to do this and tightness and control and I don't have it yet. You're only going to find that you don't have it yet, always. But if you come from this place of like, I have everything, and you get delusional about it. Like, even if the physical thing hasn't really manifested in your life yet, and you just get delusional about what you do have, like, the universe doesn't care. It doesn't speak your language, it speaks in energy. So, if your energy is, I'm abundant as fuck, you're going to get that wealth. You're going to get those clients. But if your energy is still hyper focused on the material and what you don't have, then you're going to keep finding you get the thing, you're not happy. You get the thing, you're not happy. That's why all of these, celebrities and people who seemingly have everything are actually so, so unfulfilled and unhappy. Yeah, I don't really have a nice little sweet bow to put on that, but yeah.
I find that to be such an interesting concept, and I think it's really cool now that we're living in 2025 and there's like science to back it because now people can't just be like, "Oh, you and your," I mean,
Yeah,
people can
woo
do
woo.
whatever they
Yeah,
want, but
right. Right. If
and
you
they
want to hate,
still
go ahead,
will.
boo boo. Yeah, they
Yeah.
still will. I know. There's this girl on TikTok who I love, and she starts her video. She talks about like the more physical side to healing your ailments, and she's great. And she's like, um, you can do this, or you don't have to. You don't have to, boo. You do whatever you want, right? Like you do whatever you want. So it's like if this doesn't resonate with you, that's fine. But it's like the science is backing gratitude. The science is backing love. The science is backing energy, right? Everything is energy. The science says that. So can we, I'm like really done with being like, oh, sorry if this is too woo woo for you. I'm like, no, the science is there.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's
yeah.
so weird that we have this culture that is so obsessed with science. Like, science has really become a new religion in a way.
Yeah.
But a lot of people who are so obsessed with science, I find, and maybe this is just being way too vague, but I'll say it anyway, like, they are so close-minded to like it's like they have this specific science and then that's all the science they want to believe and then they
Yeah.
want to write off other stuff as like as if that's someone's opinion and it's like no, this is
Right.
science. Like, do you
Right.
love science or not? Because I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
science.
I know, totally, totally. And it's really like I really look at it as something simple. It's basically there's one truth coming from source, and we all interpret it in our own ways, and we're all fully connected to it in our own ways. But like, I guess what I'll say is this: it's like your ability to recognize truth is directly related to how open you are to being wrong and how open you are, like how open your heart is. And so all these people who are like, this isn't real, that this study says this study is that, it's like, okay, so you're basically just telling me that you are a lower vibrational person. And again, that's not a bad thing. Like we're all here on our different levels, but it's just like you're telling me so much. And you know, that at the end of the day, like if I am scared of being myself and talking about all this, stuff we're talking about, it's just like, do I want that person's life? The person who would kind of like hate what I'm doing or make fun of what I say, right? Do I want their life? And the answer is no, I would never. I love being the person that's like open to the mystery. And you talked about mystery a lot in your first episode. And like there's things that we just don't know. And that your little science, the little cult of science just doesn't know. Can you be open to that? So, yeah, maybe I got a little heated there for a second, but it is what it is.
That's okay. My dogs just busted in the room, so I'm gonna kick them out really quick.
Okay, that's fine.
I swear they're getting smarter and smarter.
So you still have all three, Solstice, and I forget Sarah or something with an S.
Zoe and Tarzan.
Zoe and Tarzan.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that so much.
Yeah, we're pretty used to rolling with three now.
That's great. You have like a literal pack.
Yeah.
You have a pack, a pack of dogs. I love it.
Well, I
Um,
want to specifically just mention that Yo or Yolanda, who we keep referencing, that's Yolanda Norris Clark. She is has been a teacher to both of us, and she really opened my mind. I forgot what it was. You said something specifically where I was like, "Yeah, Yo really taught me." I I sought her out as a teacher about birth and birth outside of the medical system. And the things that she teaches is so much greater than that. And yeah, I think birth is like the greatest metaphor for life, but she also teaches so much about self-healing and stepping out of victimhood and the power of choice and the art of choosing. And
yeah.
yeah, she's just been, that's someone who I'll definitely always be just grateful to have had her come into my field because she's taught me so much, and that has like insanely shifted the trajectory of my life, her teachings.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's
I'm
the
just
same for me.
blown open. I thought I was an open-minded, open-hearted, open-spirited person before,
Right.
and she just like has blown me open. And then anytime I kind of start to close down, it's like something that really helps me that she has said is, when you get to a point where it's maybe when you're facing like a dark time in your life and you think that
Mm.
you're stuck and there's no way out of it and like your life sucks and you're a piece of shit, like, and
Mm-hmm.
there's no way to fix it, like, that is actually the exact direct proof that there are infinite possibilities that you're not
Love that.
considering.
I love that. I love she has such a way with words. Yeah, I got chills when you said that. And I think like I was in that position yesterday of just feeling like, man, I suck. Why am I such a loser? And again, I hear things. So what happens is I'll hear my like younger Maddie, that wounded younger girl, and I'll hear her screaming or I'll hear her crying. And I'll also hear her come through with this like loser and all that kind of thing. But I really want to take that Yolanda quote to heart because just pausing in that moment and just allowing the breath to come through. I mean, it's so easy to talk about. Like, I'll have clients and I'll talk about things and I'm like, yeah, I can talk about this till the cows come home, but like actually doing it. And so I really love that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I started grief counseling, one-on-one grief counseling recently. That's been a new offering that I've put out.
Yeah.
And it's heavily focused, somatic focus. So just it's
Yeah.
really not, it's not about like, it's not talk therapy. I mean,
Right.
we are talking a little bit, and sometimes we might talk more than other times, but it really is about like, so what we've been doing is talking until we get to a point where you're obviously experiencing an emotion, or you're
Mm-hmm.
feeling it and you're describing it, and then it's like, okay, now that we're here, let's stop talking and let's get into the body and just see if we
Right.
can feel it. And it's been I don't really have words for it, but it just feels so important, and it just feels like the real work. Like I used to go to therapy. I started in talk therapy, and I think that can be a great starting point for people. But I think that the deeper healing for people who want to choose deeper healing is really in somatic work and getting
Yeah.
into the body. And that was another thing we learned in the school with Yolanda and Emily was feeling your feelings to completion and just like
Yep.
not getting all clogged up. And because not only does that create disease in the body, but it's also affecting the way that you show up in your life and
Mm-hmm.
the way that you are in relationship with yourself and with other people in the world. And it can get
Yeah.
really, things can get really messy
Yeah.
when we kind of like keep everything. I don't know, this is gross, but it just kind of reminds me of like a clogged up toilet and like,
For sure. Oh yeah. It just overflows in ways that you would never wish it to when you don't attend to it.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, Something I've recently started doing in my sessions, because when I first started giving sessions, I would do my best to kind of like hold a resonance for them as they're going into their bodies. But I would be guiding them into their bodies and not really like going into the depths with them, so to speak. So then, that I would be giving all this like guidance and all of this like really beautiful wisdom. But then, the session would end and then I would go about my life and something really painful would happen to me. And then I would get into the moment of like, okay, do all the work, basically practice what you preach. And I'm like, this shit is fucking hard. Like, this shit is fucking hard. So, what I've kind of adopted in my sessions now is now that I've been refining this really cool method of intuition is I can kind of tap into we all have electromagnetic fields, and then we also all have, and this is coming from my school, so take it with it what you will or whatever. Um, but we have like a thought field, we have an emotion field, we have a field of our limit of our beliefs, of our actions, and on and on up until about like 8 or 9. And so what I'm able to do now in my sessions is just like tap into their emotional fields and just be on that ride with them. And I can intuitively guide them in the somatic meditation because I know in my own body, because I'm experiencing what they're experiencing, where they can breathe into and where the tension is. And and that has just been, really, really, it's just elevated my sessions in such a profound way because I'm going through it with them. Like this somatic work is fucking hard. It's the hardest thing, one of the hardest things out there. And, really being able to, feel that with them and be on that journey with them. That's all we human beings want, right? We just want like some company in that emotion. We want to be witnessed in that emotion. And there's one thing I wanted to add, but it's not, if it doesn't pop to my mind. Oh, it's like we know that trapping your emotions in the under the rug or in the trap door or whatever, leads to the clogged toilet thing. And that's not, no one really wants that. Um, but and we know that it leads to disease as well, is what I'm trying to say. But like actually what's crazy is every little pocket of tension or pain, whether it's an itch or muscle tightness or a migraine, it leads back to a specific emotion that you're holding on to. And so one of the things that I've been studying is like, oh, the upper back holds this. Oh, the mid back. I've been getting so much mid back with Eros. Mid back holds this, lower back holds this. Oh, you're coughing, and I can kind of be like, oh, it's actually having to do with your ability to express yourself, blah, 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 blah. And like this is available to anyone. Like again, I want to reiterate, as my teachers reiterate, like I'm not special. I've just practiced. I've just practiced, kind of like Kobe Bryant. He's a basketball player. He did really well because he was so good and focused at practicing and strengthening his skills. And yeah, I just really want to, like, anyone can do this and they can become their own intuitive. And then what's even better than being your own intuitive is having a community of women who are deeply connected and wanting and natural healers and can see you in a way that you might not be able to see yourself. Um, so again, somatic shit is hard. Like, take a buddy, like take a friend.
Yeah, that's something that I love about just this realm of work, whether it's the birth stuff or somatic healing, energy work, intuition, all that kind of stuff. It's that it is available to everyone. And it's accessible to everyone.
Right.
And it's not like, oh, you need this, this, and this, or you need to have this doctor who went to school
Totally.
for
There's
12
no gatekeeping.
years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I do think that one thing in the like, sovereignty world that is interesting, and I don't know, part of me like kind of hates that word. I don't know if it's just
Yeah.
because it's overused, but
It might be. It might be.
everything has its extremes, and I think some people really get to the extreme of like, okay, sovereignty means that I don't need anyone or anything. Like all I need is myself and I'm
Yeah.
good.
Mm-hmm.
And while that is true in a way, it's also not true. And like we really need community. And I think that the witnessing in somatic work is also really part of the potency and the magic of it. Because
Yes.
like you said, we want someone to witness us. We want someone to go down into the depths with us and see us and feel that too. And
Mm.
part of me is like, no, I don't want that. I want to hide. I don't want anyone to see my like
Yeah.
freaking dark, crazy, weird shit down here.
Yeah.
But it is true. It's like that is the medicine, is being seen as exactly who
Totally.
you are and being loved for it and like
Right.
be and then for someone to be like, I feel that too.
Yeah.
Like that's always the best and like such a, yeah, such a sweet way to connect with someone is opening up about like your darkness and then saying, "Oh, this is what my darkness looks like." Like I understand what you're saying. There's
Yeah,
something just really magical
I
about
love it.
that.
I do agree. Like magic is the correct word for that. It's just being our whole selves. If an attribute can be everything all at once, like we talked about with, being smart can also be stupid, being stupid can also be smart. Fudge, I lost my train of thought, but I swear I was going in a good direction. Um,
Yeah, we were talking
yeah,
about letting someone see you and like see the
yes.
darkness and
Yeah. Oh my God, because that is the magnetism. That is the magnetism.
yeah.
Like when my favorite, my favorite podcast right now, he's just so himself and he makes mistakes all the time and he's just cool with it. And it makes me love him, right? Because it's like that totality of self. Like when you're willing to reveal that totality of self, it's like people love us. And actually, I wanted to touch on like so many healers and teachers in this spiritual world can kind of like get off on being a pedestal, like a lot of psychics and a lot of intuitives, right? Like I have this gift and you don't have it, and whatever. And it's like no, like that age, I promise you, is like coming to an end, like that gatekeeping age, and it's just like no, we all have those abilities, and we're all everything. And the more that as I consider myself a spiritual teacher, and I'm sure you do too, in a lot of ways. And it's just like when my clients come to me, I'm like freaking mind blown by how beautiful and wildly intelligent they are, and extremely high conscious they are, and they're just so uniquely them, and like just falling in love with the secret sauce that is you, and you being able to appreciate someone else, does not take away from you. No one can ever take away that like magic thing that you have, right? And so it's just less about um, being this teacher and being this coach or being this therapist that's like, a pedestaled. No, it's like the thing that's going to make people come to you is your ability to just say, I'm human too, man. We're all here. We're all here. We all have the same abilities, gifts, and yeah, we might have different potentials in this life, but actually we can excuse me, we can all like reach whatever we want to reach. So yeah, that was another point that I thought was important to mention, and I can still get caught up in comparison a lot, right? But I notice it's only when I'm I'm like beating myself up about something, or I've fallen out of the perfection with the all that is, and then as soon as I put myself back into the state of like I already have everything, like I've already made it, I'm already successful, I'm already this, then I'm like, oh my God, I love you, I have love to pour on you. So
Yeah, I love the perspective of like when we get caught up in those moments of jealousy or comparison, of just letting that be information of like, oh, that's something that
yes,
I want, you know?
yeah, yeah, totally.
And I think that especially with women, and I don't know, actually probably with men too, I would think. I mean, I'm not a man, so I can't speak for men, but I would
Yeah,
just, I can yeah, intuitively, I feel like with humans, we just have this thing of like, we see something that someone has and we want it. And
yeah,
then sometimes we can either be like, okay, I'm gonna go get it. And then
right.
sometimes we can be like, ooh, I gotta take it from them or something. And so
Yeah,
I love the energy of collaboration and the energy of generosity. And while you were talking, I was just thinking of how different the world could be if we kind of took a step back from that hierarchy. I think that actually is a lot of the problem with birth in the medical system is like
mm,
anytime we look at someone and give our power to them and look to them to tell us what to do and what choices to make and as if they can save us in some way, like there's
yeah,
going to be a problem.
right.
And
Yeah,
I just like if and I'm sure not all doctors are this way. But if doctors could just like be normal humans and stop acting like they're these some gods who like, yeah, you did go to school for a long time and you studied this, and yes, you are an expert in your field of
yeah,
that. And also like you're talking about people's bodies, like people
yeah,
know their bodies.
yeah.
people have
Totally.
authority over their bodies. There's no way that you know.
Totally.
And so it's
Totally. Yeah,
just,
you've never lived a day in my life, a day of your life in my body. Totally.
yeah. And I don't know, while you were talking, I was like, I wonder if there would be a way that the medical model, I mean, it would have to completely change. So this like kind of
Yeah.
defeats the whole question. But
Yeah.
if people could really shift that, putting people up on a pedestal or the hierarchy thing, like if that
Right.
didn't exist in some way, which is really, really hard to imagine, honestly, like
Right.
as someone who tries to practice that in my life, I think that that's just the way our world is set up so much. So
Hmm.
it's hard to even like in my imagination picture how a world without hierarchy would work.
Right.
But yeah, there is something in me that just like really wonders, wow, what would that look like? And it feels like it would be really beautiful.
I love talking about this. It would be so beautiful. It would be, everyone in the community would recognize and be able to see their inherent perfection and the gifts that they have. And instead of looking at other people from this place of like, I don't have what you have, it's like, I have what I have and you have what you have. Let's see what we can do with that. How can I help you? How can you help me? Like looking at everyone as their own expert. And that's actually why just being in the state of love can be so healing to people, is because what you're doing is you're reflecting to them, you're acting as the mirror for them to see their potential. And I really do envision this world, and a lot of things have to crumble. The next 5 years are going to be tough for all of us, and also awesome, but tough because things are going to be crumbling down. But really, like the the at least I think the central core to the culture that we will be building going on into the future will be like uh, intuition, and everyone is their own expert. Everyone's their own, you know, everyone just loves who they are and they're able to awaken their gifts. And I think of like the Shire in The Lord of the Rings, where like everyone is just such a massive integral part of the success of the community. And it's so bucolic, I think is the word. Nice. And it's just gorgeous. And it's just everyone's like living their passion. And I do believe that that can work. I do believe that. I think that that's how this was designed. But so many people are walking around, myself included, for most of my 20s, just lost, depressed, confused, not in touch with my gifts, or my like soul, like the career my soul was pulling me towards. People are just out of touch. They're lost. They're confused. They don't understand why we're here. They think that life is this horrible, like negative thing, and that it's gonna suck all the juice out of you. And really just doesn't have to be like that. It can be effing amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I love when I see a young person, like, someone in their late teens or early 20s, and they're just so clear and driven on what they
Yeah.
want to do in the world. And I'm like, oh, that's amazing. My little niece, she's 12, and I have a feeling she's gonna be that way because she's just like, yeah, she's so clear and she knows
Yeah.
what she wants, she knows what she doesn't want, and she like goes after it. She's so curious, and
Yeah.
she gives me a lot of hope for like what the future generations are bringing.
I love that so much. I work with a 19-year-old who's about to turn 20, and she is astounding. She is just astounding. And my teacher once said that, there's a reason why all these healers are adults right now. Like right now at this place of time, in at this place of time, or whatever that's supposed to be, the words aren't coming out. Like right now, there's a reason why there's so many natural healers who are adults. And it's because we're kind of ushering in this huge change and this huge shift in consciousness. And then all of those younger kids who are so clear and driven, at 12, at 19, right? They're going to just like we're just going to pass the torch to them. And I just look at it as being so beautiful. And just, yeah, we are all so blessed. Anyone listening to this podcast is probably a very like high frequency healer soul, and we are like we have a lot of responsibility also, but just such a huge blessing to get to be here and to get to make this shift happen and to facilitate so much uh, change and awareness and all of that. And yeah, it's just it's a scary, but it's also a quite a beautiful time to be alive.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to just take a moment here and sit with what you just said about us all being so blessed and just invite you and myself and anyone who's listening, if you want to just take your hand to your heart and
Yeah.
eyes open or eyes closed, whatever you feel is right for you. But yeah, just really sit and soak in this feeling of being blessed, blessing yourself and your body and your life and your energy, your family, this exact perfect moment, knowing it's a blessing, knowing you're a blessing, and just breathing that in for a few moments. That feels really good.
Yeah, wow. I could just get lost in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the key. That is the key. I think that's the key to everything right there. Yeah.
Well, we're done. We solved it.
We figured it out. See ya. Off, shooting off to the different realms. Oh man, that felt really good though. Thank you. Thank you for facilitating that.
Yeah, thank you. Okay,
Yeah.
so since we're wrapping up a little bit, I want to ask you, what is one practice or ritual that you have that reminds you that life is sacred, reminds you to continue being yourself and just being this beautiful, blessed being out in the world?
Um, Recently I have been writing down these, I call them ingredients. And the ingredient that I've been focusing on is how bullet point list, make a bullet point list in my journal of how have I already made it in life. I'm searching for this feeling of like making it. Like, what does making it feel like? And I want to just feel that way now. So I'm not always kind of searching. And I'll make a list of all these reasons and it'll be fun to like write, it's basically a gratitude practice is what I'm saying. And I'll write them all down and then I'll make sure that I can open my heart into each one. And sometimes I can't get to all the bullet points, but I will kind of just emotionally and heart connect to all of these different bullet points of how I've already made it. And I'll start to notice my posture change and like maybe I'll take some movements to kind of, embody this new energy that I really want for my life right now. And obviously the breath, everything is through the breath. And yeah, so and I try not to make it this, because I have a baby, I try not to make it this like what's the word, super special thing that can only be done at my desk at 8 p.m. alone. I make sure that I leave it open so that I can breastfeed while doing it. So that if Eros needs me, I can kind of practice that with him, playing with him. So yeah, that has been so amazing for me recently.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that. I love
Thank
the
you
that
for
you
asking.
yeah, I love that you connected, making the list, but also then taking the time to like tune into the emotion of it and
Yeah,
feeling what that feels like. I feel like that is sometimes the missing key to some of our practices. It's
yeah,
like we just want to like
yeah.
literally make the list and then check it off our
Right.
to-do list. Like, oh yeah, I
And be like, okay,
meditated.
bye.
Yeah.
I'm totally good. And then the next second, you're like, man, why do I feel like it's not working?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But it's just an invitation to like, okay, now you can go deeper and now you have a great simple practice from Sweet Maddie and you can
yeah,
take your practice a level deeper.
yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so do you want to share with us where people can find you if they want to connect with you? I don't know if you have any offerings
Yeah,
you want to put out into the world, but just like, yeah, give us your.
sure. So the business I own is currently called Ocean Embodied, and I'm on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube. And also, I'm on school.com as Ocean Embodied. And on Instagram and TikTok, there's an underscore in between the two words. And then YouTube, it's one word. And then school.com, I forget, but you'll be able to find me. And yeah, so I'm still building school.com out, but take a peek if you want. Anyways, so I do have offerings on my website, oceanembodied.com, and I do one-to-one work. And I also have an other one-to-one option for energetic healing, specifically in energetic teaching. And then obviously my other offering of somatic and kind of combining all that intuitive stuff. Yeah. And then I'm currently working on a program as well. But you can find me Ocean Embodied everywhere. I just would love to work with you. It's the greatest gift in the world to get to do what you love. And, I really look at it as such a, blessing. So yeah, thank you for listening. Anyone who is listening and has made it this far, just thank you so much. I love you.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing all your stories and sharing all the places people can find you. I love the name of your business, Ocean Embodied. I have a love affair with the ocean, so
Oh, oh man, don't we all as women just like, oh my God, when we're in the water, it's like this is my true nature.
yeah.
Yeah, that's why I chose that name. Yeah,
Yeah, it's great.
thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Maddie.
Thank you so much, Sydney. Like this was just the most fun. I just feel like I'm just at such a high level of vibration right now. I'm so grateful to you, and I look forward to listening to all the different stories and all the different people on your podcast this year, season one.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited and I've loved this. I don't know if we've ever gotten just like 2 hours to sit and talk with each other. So it was really
Yeah,
special to
yeah,
hear your stories and I feel like we could talk forever, but I
yeah.
really, yeah, this feels like a very special conversation and I love that it's gonna like be out into the world to share with others and allowing other people to join in on the conversation.
Yeah, yeah, I love it too. I just feel really, really good right now. Thank you for creating this.
Yeah, these always got me buzzing.
Yeah, for sure.
Hello, this is Editing Sid here. I'm just popping in to say a quick goodbye and thank you to all of you that are listening wherever you are in the world. I appreciate you so much from the bottom of my heart, the top of my heart, the front of my heart, the back of my heart, all sides of my heart, my whole heart. Thank you so much for listening and coming on this journey with me. If you would like to connect with Maddie or myself, you can find all of our information down in the show notes. You can head over to sacredreclamation.com if you want to read some of my poetry or shop for plant medicine. And wherever you're watching, I would love it if you could click the like button, follow, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, leave us a comment, let us know what you thought about this episode. If you had any thoughts that popped up, we would love to connect with you in that way. If you want to be a guest on the podcast, please reach out to me, email me, message me on Instagram. I would love to connect with you. And I'll see y'all in the next one. Thanks again.